And it is, hold on a second, are we following a script set down by the powers that be?
Well, yes, that question can mean many different things, can't it?
It's a very broad question, yeah.
Yeah. I think I know what he means. It's like the kind of, an example of that would be the whole problem, reaction, solution script, the way that the world fell into a script after 9/11, and they all kind of went along on predetermined lines by reacting in certain ways, and then that allowed everyone to be steered, and so on and so forth. I think that there are continuing strong attempts to do that with quite some success. But more and more, I believe that this is not working. And this dovetails back to some of the things I was saying in the last hour to an hour and a half. For example, about the whole swine flu vaccinations thing. There's meant to be a script there, but we didn't follow that script. Right. And they had to break away from that script, according to what I've been told. That's not going to work anymore. People are just going to refuse these things. They're going to have to think of something else. And so there's more changes of plans, ducking and weaving, improvisation going on, and the signs of this. And for Kerry's benefit, who probably wasn't able to hear the earlier part of the show, I was referring, Kerry, to how you and I back in 2008 were really very anxious that something quite serious might be happening towards the back end of that year. And but nothing did happen. And there are many indications that what was planned, these things haven't rolled out, the timelines have changed, or the plans have changed, depending on what metaphor one wants to use, or another way of putting that is that the scripts are not being followed anymore. Kerry, what do you think?
We lost Kerry. But
we lost Kerry?
Yes.
Okay.
But I do have another question for the administrator of Project Avalon, Richard.
You may need to call her back, because I was talking to her just yesterday, and her Skype connection kept on breaking up in ways that were beyond her control. So just try her again.
Okay. Don, if you could just call Kerry back, that'd be great. I have a question from Richard, and it is widely believed in the awake community that human history as our books portrayed is completely distorted. Has your insider or any of your insiders shared any information as to our real history, human history?
That's a great question. I'm going to answer it by saying yes.
That's a great answer.
At the moment, I'm not in a position to enlarge on it because I don't understand the details well enough. But the answer to that is absolutely categorically yes. I've only just started to scrape the surface of this, of some of the information that has been explained to me over the last few months, and I'm being cautious about this because I don't want to be presenting information that may be either incomplete, incompletely understood, or in some cases might not be totally correct. I need to be very, very sure of my ground. What I have told you so far is what I'm pretty sure of.
Okay. I have a question from... Who is this question from? It says Dale. Okay, I guess it's a question from Dale. What is your opinion concerning the peak oil? Concerning the topic of peak oil? And this is from one of the moderators at Project.
Yeah, right. Dale. Yeah, Dale's a very smart cookie, and this is a very smart question. I'm not a geophysicist, and so I'm dependent upon others to supply me with information that then I look at with whatever, intelligence I can apply. I became very interested during the whole Gulf oil disaster there, looking into the idea of abiotic oil, because it was being extensively discussed. There are some very plausible and intelligent reports written about that. There are descriptions of the researchers that the Russians had done into some very logical arguments that said, listen, if we're pulling oil up from really deep down, like the Russians have been, as deep down as 40,000 feet, those sediments weren't laid. I mean, those are too deep for those sediments to have been laid simply through layers of rotting vegetation back in the Cretaceous era or whenever it was. And I was interested and impressed by those arguments that this had to be coming up from kind of deep down within the Earth itself. I was starting to find those arguments quite compelling. The insider contact who I've been in touch with for the last few months specifically and emphatically told me that peak oil was a reality. And he said that there was something like 25 or 30 years left, and there was no such thing as abiotic oil as best he knew. All I can do is to report those experiences to you, the experience I had of finding the abiotic oil arguments interesting and compelling, and also reporting to you what I was told by my contact based on conversations he had heard, and also bearing in mind that he was not a scientist or a geophysicist of any kind or an oil engineer. He's just reporting conversations that he has heard on the inside. That's as best as I can do.
Yeah, during that whole Gulf oil event, you had joined another forum that was, or you were monitoring another forum that had oil men in it, men that worked in the oil industry, and they were pointing out all kinds of stuff that you were posting on Project Avalon that was, coming from the guys who had the boots on the ground sort of thing.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. That forum was called the Oil Drum. A very simple URL. It's called theoildrum.com. And there were a lot of smart people there, oil engineers, exploration geophysicists, people who worked with their hands dirty and their boots covered in oil for 30 years and whose opinions needed to be taken into account. They were being, these aren't spokespeople for BP. Those were experienced, no-nonsense oil men. And some of those were clearly very intelligent, very well-informed people. And I began to pay quite a lot of attention to them because they were laughing, literally laughing at some of the things that I had told them that Lindsay Williams had said. And I intend Lindsay Williams no harm here, but it was very clear that in his reports during the summer to Jeff Renson, Alex Jones, he had been misinformed. And whether that was an accident, whether it was a problem of his understanding, or whether he was being deliberately played, which I think is the case, these guys, these oil men on the oil drum were able to correct me. They said, they knew exactly what the pressures were in the Macondo well. Everything was known about the geology. You don't get oil in granite, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they showed me all of the documents. They showed me all of the stuff. They showed me all of the maps. And I began
laid it out. Yeah.
They really laid it out, and they're smart people. And I began to realize that all of, that the floor of the Gulf of Mexico wasn't going to collapse. There wasn't going to be a giant tsunami. There wasn't an oil volcano. There wasn't any of this stuff going on. It was just a serious engineering problem that was right on the limits of human technology. And I began to realize it was going to be solved, and it was. I do think that there are complications there. We've only got about 3 or 4 minutes of the show left, so we can't go into that either. But
and I would like to.
Yeah.
I would like to say that my neighbor actually did knock me off the internet that time. Had to run upstairs and ask them to rehook me up. So I have a rental place upstairs. It's like a holiday rental. So these holiday people had just come and decided to unplug the internet. Anyway, I have to say I don't agree with some of what Bill's conclusions were on that, and that is because I actually was approached by someone who's very connected to the scene in BP and the scene out there, and I can't reveal too much about him other than to say I met him in person, and his family was also involved, but he has a strong history of being involved in that area. It is a geologically unstable area. There is some volcanic stuff going on under there. There are some very strong issues like microbes that do eat through metal, which is legitimate. And there are other things going on, such as ET bases that are under there. There appears to be a very strong reason why they do want to clear out the population of the Louisiana Delta and all of that area, including New Orleans, and that's been part of their plan for quite some time. This was just another one of the dominoes in that rollout. So I have to say the Jesse Ventura show on BP Oil was quite good. It did outline some of the more mainstream things that are going on. It's quite diabolical.
Okay. Well, we got about 2 minutes left, so if there's any what I'd like to do is, Bill, if you'd like to give out any information about how people can contact you or how they can get on the Avalon forum or check out your website, and Kerry, if you do the same, that'd be great. Bill?
Yes, I will. Let me say that, of course, anytime Kerry and I are together, we always run out of time. And this and many other things we're going to be able to talk about on Sunday with David Wilcock and Richard Hoagland, and no one's going to be able to get any of us to shut up, which is going to be really quite interesting. And we're certainly not going to agree on everything, that's for sure. But it'll be a very interesting exchange of information. I think that this is one way to put it. I'm hugely looking forward to that. You can contact me either bill@projectcamelot.org or bill@projectavalon.net. They all come through to the same place. Anyone wants to join the Avalon forum, there's if you click on the register button, if you're not a member, then there's a whole process that we go through whereby we send you an application and we then invite you if you think that you're the kind of person we'd like to invite. And I don't want to filibuster Kerry off the end of this here.
And of course, your website
Kerry,
is
you want to say
projectavalon.com.
And no, it's projectavalon.net.
Net, right.
Projectavalon.net and projectcamelot.org.
Okay.
Yeah, and don't say projectcamelot.net ever, because that was an ex-webmaster who basically stole our URL there. So we're still trying to negotiate getting it back from him. But in the meanwhile, my website is, of course, projectcamelot.org. That takes you to the portal. And my personal website, projectcamelotproductions.com. And we also have projectlightwarrior.com, and we have a forum, camelotforum.com, which we're having a lot of fun over there, and we don't send applications. So we have a more laissez-faire attitude towards that, as was apparent in the early days of Bill and I on Avalon. So at any rate, thank you for having me as a guest.
It was my pleasure. I'd like to thank Bill Ryan for being here. I'd like to thank Kerry Cassidy for being here. I'd like to thank all of the moderators that helped out to make this a smooth event. I'd like to thank Don and Doug at BBS Radio for making it happen. I'd also like to mention this is a special broadcast that we're doing, and that we will be doing our regular show at 7:55 p.m. Pacific tonight, or a 10:55 Eastern tonight. So this is just a special event we're doing for the Project Avalon community and all the members. I'd like to thank you for your questions and your time and joining us today. Thank you, everyone.